So we've got these intermittent conditions here, or I say intermittent, it's rained, now it's not, and it's going to eventually dry up, but it's really cold and it's going to be super hard to predict for our sessions coming up which tyre to use. So I'll run you through a little bit about how we go about it. If it was raining the whole time, we'd be okay. It's going to dry out and we're not expecting any more rain today. We're not expecting, but there could be a slight chance. I'll show you how we do it. All right, so what we do, we've got, in our team being a big team, we've got a couple of different situations. We've got riders like Chris who's got one bike, and this weekend Luke's only got one bike. Timo's got two, but I'll show you how we manage it. Essentially, we've got three tyre choices. We've got full dries, our slicks. We have a harder wet that we use as our intermediate tyre, and we also have a soft wet that we use as our full wet. So the conditions that we showed you just before at the moment are full wet, but it's going to pretty quickly start to develop to intermediate. So what we do with the bikes that we only have one bike, what we have is we have all of the wheel tyre options. The dries have been on the warmers. We're very unlikely to use them, but what we've got is we've gone through the program and we're going to make a key decision. We've selected when we're going to make the decision of which tyres to put in, and as you can see, this bike has no wheels in it. And the reason for that, if we were to go, we're not sure about which tyres to run and have the wheels in it, we're creating more work. So the wheels are out. We've got all three options ready. You can see them sitting over here as well for Chris's bike. Bricko, who'll be doing the spanners for Chris when we make this decision, we'll give him an instruction at a particular time. I'll say, Bricks, we're going with the full wets, or we're going intermediate. And the other thing over here too, in terms of suspension setting, the bike's got a wet setting in at the moment. You can see this W here. They'll all have that when they've got a wet setting, so that we know that when we put the slicks in, we're going to pull that off when we go to a dry setting. But the bike's got a wet setting. We're likely to use one of the two wet options in this next first qualifying session. So we're getting ready for that. I guess the key point, probably the key fundamental thing when you're doing tyre selection is you should, people taking a gamble and all that sort of stuff, your number one thing is to be on the right tyre for those conditions that you're going out in, always. The problem comes when it's hard to make a decision, where it's drying quickly, there's a delay, so you might think it's full wet, but then there's a delay or recovery and the track dries faster than you expect. Or you might have a situation where you know at the start of the session it's going to be too wet for slicks, but by the end of the session it will be good for slicks. So that's when your rider comes into the equation of which tyre you might select. So first thing is the right tyre for the conditions. Then when it's very difficult, like it's a marginal call either way, that's where you use a bit of intuition to what choice you make. Decision to go to the slicks earlier than we would for other riders, just because it suits his style. He's comfortable with a slick in a damp condition. Someone like Saucy, he's not as comfortable on slicks in damp conditions, so we wouldn't go with that. Someone like Luke, maybe previously wasn't as comfortable, but he's had quite a bit of experience on slicks and damp tracks and wet tracks of recent times. So if it was a marginal call and we thought it was the faster tyre, but also harder to manage, with those two riders, we'd chuck them on those tyres because we know they have the experience to do it, and would give them the trust to do that. Riders like Saucy and Will that don't have the experience and we're going straight into a qualifying, even if we think that the slick tyre would be the slightly faster tyre, like it's got to dry obviously a bit more, but even if the slick was the right tyre for ultimate lap time, we would actually be better off going with the intermediate tyre because they won't have the confidence to push hard enough, and we need them to be confident to start with. So that's a bit of a judgment call, and you have to balance that all the time. As I said, it's harder when you've got a rider with only one bike. So you can see the boys there, Joey and Jules, have got all these options ready, and we're going to make a decision about 15 minutes out from our session about which way we're going. So that's how we'll do the one bike stuff.